The mind exists, and things exist in the mind. Pause for a moment and see if you can deny these two facts. You can't, because by your very questioning you prove them to be true. You are using your mind to hear and think about my words, thus proving the existence of the mind. And the doubts, thoughts, and ideas that you are having prove that things exist within it. Not only do thoughts and ideas exist in the mind, or psyche, but desires, urges, drives, and forces. Among the most powerful of forces in the human mind is that of the sexual drive. In its most basic form, the sex drive in man exists for the sake of procreation. That is no light matter. Sexuality exists in mankind for the very propagation of the species, for the purpose of passing the torch of life on to the next generation. It is one of the most powerful forces in the human mind, and it is indeed a power, a drive, a force. I mention it merely to illustrate the concept of a force originating in the mind. We will discuss it in depth in our video on the sexual instinct. Another great and powerful force in the human mind, the one which we are now investigating, is the aggressive instinct. The aggressive instinct evolved in the human psyche for two main purposes: one, to obtain, and two, to protect what has been obtained. In order to go out and hunt, gather, seek shelter, seek mates, humans needed aggression. And once these things were obtained, man had to fiercely defend his bounty. Early humans could not be gentle in their endeavor to survive, and they could not be passive. Thus we evolved the capacity for aggression, wherein we actively seek the resources necessary for life and risk our own to protect them. You'll see as we go on that all human drives originate from the desire to create life, sustain life, protect life, and advance life. All primordial human instincts are lifeward. The human mind is a complex thing, and that is about as narrow as we can classify it, a thing. But for the sake of illustration, let's draw two broad distinctions in it: the conscious and unconscious aspects of the mind. The conscious mind is the aspect of your mind hearing these words right now. It is the mind that reasons logically, that receives the impressions of the senses, recalls the images of the memory, or in short, is everything in the mind and of the mind that the mind is itself aware of. The unconscious mind is that part of the mind that contains the memory, performs the involuntary bodily tasks, projects dreams, everything in the mind and of the mind that the mind is not aware of. And most importantly, it is that place from which emanate the primal psychological drives. The unconscious mind is self-evident, and proof of it lies in your very experience. You know a lot of information, and yet you're not thinking of most of it right now. So where is all of the information you supposedly know? You are unconscious of it. Likewise, your mind contains plenty of memories of previous experiences, and yet at any given moment you're not remembering most of them. Where are they? In the unconscious. A moment's consideration will show you that not only does it exist, but it is far vaster than the conscious awareness. You are unaware of far more of what goes on in your mind than you are aware. So far, we've mentioned the sexual and aggressive instincts, as well as the conscious and unconscious mind. What of them? How are they relevant? What do they have to do with the mastery of aggression? And why would I want to master something like aggression in the first place? Well, there's an inexorable law of the human psyche, and that law is that forces and drives of the unconscious mind seek conscious expression, and if they are denied conscious expression, they express themselves in unhealthy and unconscious ways. When the sexual instinct, for example, is repressed, one may have pathological sexual dreams, or be subconsciously occupied with it all the time. In extreme cases, we see sexual violence and perversion manifest. Likewise, the aggressive instinct is an inherent and permanent aspect of the human psyche, and if we don't give it safe, healthy, and conscious expression, we give it no other way than to express itself along unsafe, unhealthy, and unconscious lines. There are, of course, far more instincts and drives in the human mind than the sexual and aggressive, but herein we are concerned primarily with aggression. Sexuality has been mentioned in parallel for the sake of example. So what makes the mastery of aggression so important? Because we live in a society which represses it, and therefore see it manifest in ugly and unhealthy ways. Thus, the understanding and mastery of the aggressive instinct is both a moral and social obligation of our time, directly relating to both our personal lives and the world at large. Aggression is the same energy that is used to go out and take what you want from life. It is the same energy with which we so fiercely defend ourselves, our property, our family, and our nations. It is the same energy that is seen when someone has an ideal and will break through every barrier to realize it. It is seen when a person sets a goal and resolves to achieve it by any means whatsoever. Ambition itself could be defined as aggression with a direction. In our collective repression of the fundamental aggressive instinct, we can see that not only do we force it to manifest in undesirable ways, but we strip ourselves of great power and energy. So, what is the solution to this widespread repression, or at least lack of use, of aggression? The answer lies in the very nature of repression. Let us adopt an analogy of a jungle. The unconscious mind may be likened to a jungle, full of untamed and wild forces and energies, while the conscious mind, known in psychology as the ego, is akin to a city in the middle of the jungle, conditioned and civilized by the culture in which the individual lives. Continuing with the analogy of the jungle, the aggressive instinct may be symbolized as a lion, tiger, bear, or wolf. As a matter of fact, in our dreams, aggression is often symbolized as precisely these animals. The conscious mind becoming aggressive is akin to the tiger or wolf, intruding upon the civilized city of the ego, causing chaos therein and making it wild and aggressive itself. The repression of aggression, therefore, is akin to the banishment of the beast from the city. The issue with this is that when the beast is relegated back into the wilderness, it will remain wild and untamed. Likewise, when we banish our aggression to the unconscious, it remains in a primitive and infantile state. And because the forces and drives in the unconscious mind inevitably seek conscious expression, the tiger is bound to breach the city gates once more, this time more angry and wild than before. This phenomenon is not unknown to us, and it is reflected in our language when we speak of blowing up. And when we act out of extreme anger and aggression, we say things like, I wasn't myself when I did that. The forces of the unconscious appear to hijack the conscious mind and shove our rational, normal selves into the passenger seat. So the solution to the repression of aggression, though counterintuitive, is to welcome the beast into the city, to capture it, to tame it, and to train it. In doing so, we civilize and evolve the primitive drive instead of keeping it in its infantile state. A trained dog is civilized to the extent that it obeys the command of its master and responds to his call. However, within it still lies the capacity for wildness. Likewise, when we allow aggression to remain in our conscious minds and train it by expressing it in healthy and safe ways, we become familiar with it and it with us. It becomes used to obeying the dictates of the conscious mind instead of hijacking it. The practical applications of having a trained aggression are innumerable. Just think of what you could do if you could call upon this great reservoir of power and energy at will. But it also has a moral application. To be virtuous is not to be incapable of violence, rather it is to be capable of it but refuse to use it for selfish reasons. One basic and obvious aspect of virtue is the avoidance and resistance of vice. Benevolence, therefore, lies in choosing goodness over evil. There are many definitions and ideas of evil, but here by evil is meant the intentional cruelty simply for the sake of causing suffering, or to cause suffering without good cause. Goodness, therefore, in order to be authentic, must be a choice. A person incapable of violence or cruelty, therefore, cannot be a good person, for paradoxically, they never had the choice or option to be otherwise. Furthermore, violence must be used in order to effectively defend against violence, or else virtuous individuals will always be at the mercy of the violent and vicious. Those who are not capable of violence will and must always be defenseless victims against those who are, but also protected by those who are. Thus, it is not only practically but morally incumbent upon benevolent and virtuous individuals to become capable of aggression while simultaneously learning how to harness this capacity. The fundamental principle of virtue, therefore, lies in disciplined danger. But enough talk and intellectual theory about the nature and necessity of aggression and its training. How is it done? How is aggression brought into consciousness? How is it tamed, trained, and harnessed? The answer is very simple and short. Aggression may be trained in any way in which it is allowed to express itself in a safe, conscious, and healthy manner. One may think of countless ways to do this, but to give examples, here are two tried and tested methods. First and foremost is martial arts. The act of fighting taps into a deep part of the human psyche intimately connected with the survival instincts, among which is aggression. The secretion of adrenaline puts the psyche into a hormonal state of fight or flight, but removing the choice of flight. When you fight another person, your unconscious mind, where the aggressive instinct lies, does not know that you are not fighting for your life. It thinks that it is actually defending itself, that you are truly on the verge of death, if not victorious. With this report, it activates the aggressive instinct in full capacity, and you enter a mental state in which you are consciously fully aware of what you are doing, but are filled with a sort of power that you usually do not have. Unlike most demonstrations of aggression, here you are in conscious control, and you are the master of your aggression instead of its helpless slave or victim. You are in control instead of being forced into the passenger seat of your own mind. Martial arts teach you how to be dangerous while simultaneously disciplining you in the exercise and expression of that danger. The second of these methods is that of intense physical exertion. Intense exercise, especially prolonged running, taps into the same depths of the psyche as martial arts, except in the mode of flight instead of fight. In the early evolution of mankind, during which the aggressive instinct first evolved, the only reasons for running would have been to escape some form of danger or else quickly move toward a desired object or destination. We defined aggression earlier as the same force seen in the ruthless pursuit of an object or aim. Thus, in running, once again, the unconscious mind activates aggression in full force. So, just as in the case of fighting, you yourself are fully aware of your environment, but are accompanied with a surplus of energy that you previously had no awareness of and hence no access to. In the frequent performance and practice of these methods, you will become accustomed to the power and energy that your body and mind had previously hid from your view. You will, in time, develop the ability to call upon this heightened physical energy, bodily strength, and mental endurance at will. Thus, you will have mastered your aggression, and it will prove a most useful and loyal servant.